welcome to Season 4, Episode 3 of the Raider Power Podcast. I'm Ryan, and with me as always is my man Moss and our guy Evan. How are we doing today, fellas?
I'm doing good, Ryan. Thank you for asking. I am recovering from that devastating loss last week to Oklahoma, but I'm doing okay. Evan, how are you doing, Mustache Man?
I'm doing good, man. We all too familiar position for Texas Tech fans, whether it's football, basketball. We are again without a head coach, but I am sure we will get to that in a bit.
I'd say we hop right into it. I mean, that's definitely the biggest news surrounding the program. A loss to Oklahoma, I don't think comes as a shock to any of us.
Nope.
But the big news, what we've been calling for maybe 2 years, or at least I know I have, is the firing of Matt Wells and Sonny Cumbie as interim head coach as the program looks to find the next head coach in Lubbock. What are the thoughts there? Are you happy they fired him? Who do you think should be head coach? Give it to me.
Evan, I'll start. You know, the shelf life of a jar of mayonnaise does get rotten after a little bit of time, especially if no one takes care of it and leaves it out in the sun. I have been saying that Matt Wells was a jar of mayonnaise the entire time. I could not be more thrilled that he was fired mid-season too, baby. Rip off the Band-Aid. Let's get someone new. Let's start the search. Unfortunately, his firing came at a very bad time because this Tech team does need leadership to make a bowl game this year. Evan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with the decision as well, Chris. I think that Matt Wells' tenure was underwhelming, and that's putting it lightly. I mean, what was he, 13-17 as a head coach? Before we talk about the candidates coming up, I would like to talk about the timing of it and kind of what you think went into that. But as far as, I wish Wells nothing but the best. He's a good guy. Just not cut out as a head coach in Power 5.
That's what everyone has said about Matt Wells, is that he was a very respectful man, did everything in football the right way. I personally just hated watching him coach this football team. But best of luck to him and his family moving forward.
Yeah, that's definitely all true. And I think that it just lends itself more to what you guys both said. Jar of mayonnaise, underwhelming, just a respectful guy who does everything the right way. But there was nothing exciting about his tenure.
Nothing.
At all. I mean, there wasn't like a shred of hope. You never really thought anything was working. Maybe when he first got fired, you said, you know what, new defensive coordinator too. It's going to be something different. But it was more the same, if not worse than the same. And on the timing of it all, I think it was a great move, honestly, to do it mid-season like that. I know that they're fighting for the bowl game, but when you're thinking about the long term of the program, I know technically they can't approach a lot of these candidates until the end of the season. But at the same time, for people to know the job's available and know that there's a Power 5 job, maybe it stops them from taking a different job or staying at their school, doing it early, getting it out there. I think it's the right move.
Yeah. I think you're seeing this in college football more and more these days. There's early signing day implications. It gives you more time to look for that candidate. But if I can give my opinion,
go for it.
Whether you think that it was the right move or not, here's what I think happened. You have Dusty Womble just giving another $20 million to Texas Tech Athletics for the new facility, who was on the search committee, no coincidence, with Kirby. You have Cody Campbell, who's on the search committee, previous Texas Tech player, near billionaire. That's not an exaggeration. He's with Double Eagle Oil or Double Eagle Energy. And what I think probably had a lot to play with this is Cody Campbell was calling for Wells' head at the end of last season. It's just the nature of college football that these giant boosters have massive amounts of influence. I think it's fairly reasonable to say that guys like Cody Campbell and guys like Womble ultimately could have forced Kirby's hand, even if Kirby didn't want it to happen. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that people with a lot of money could have played the money card and said, you make this change now, or you won't get another cent from me. And better yet, I'll make sure you're gone too.
You think the boosters were the main driver for his firing?
I think in this case they were definitely a driver, but I think Kirby was probably ready to pull the switch as well. I mean, you couldn't be happy with what you've gotten out of Matt Wells over the past couple of years.
The only reason why I say that I'm not sure if Kirby wanted to let him go midseason is you got to remember there was no search committee last time. This was Kirby's guy. He went rogue. People wanted Holgerson to interview. People wanted Billy Napier to interview. Kirby nixed it. He found his guy and he made the decision. So if I'm Kirby, I'm a little hesitant to fire Matt Wells, almost just kind of hoping that you go bowling and you win a bowl game and you see that progress and you keep him on for another year, because Kirby's reputation was very much stained by the hiring of Matt Wells, big time. And so
if I see what you're saying.
I mean, it's smart to side with your boosters. The boosters, like you said, the money, there's a lot of power. There's a lot of that in college football in general. I mean, it's why they say coaching at Texas is probably the hardest school to coach at. Their boosters have complete and total control of their program. That's why you see coaches kind of go in and out constantly. And I mean, it's a smart play by Kirby. Honestly, I think, like you said, protect the reputation, protect the people backing him, and move on. You made a bad decision in hiring him and move on to the next guy.
Yeah, and I'll say just, in thoughts to Kirby to do that, I mean, that shows a lot that he can take that criticism and say, I messed up. This is on me. Let's that was my mistake. And, not have it linger for too long by holding Matt Wells for the rest of the season.
And, I think Kirby's could have some motivation if he knew that firing was inevitable. And he kind of used that in his press conference. He used that term that it was inevitable. He used that multiple times. And if I'm Kirby, I'm thinking, okay, if I do what the boosters want, I'm again guessing that this is the case. And if I go ahead and make this move now, it gives me a better chance to get the guy that we want. Because make no mistake, Kirby has 2 strikes and 1 more, he's gone. 100% in my mind, I believe that. If Kirby doesn't drill this next hire and we have another Matt Wells situation, if we have another, mediocre 3-4 years, I fully believe that Kirby will no longer be our AD.
So
going off
next
of that
guy,
exactly. Who's the next guy, Evan?
You're the booster, Evan. Who's the next guy?
I'm so glad you asked, because I am very opinionated on who I want. And I will say that this was not always my original thought.
Well, before you say who you want, can we talk about who's out there real quick?
Absolutely. I'm going to leave the name that I want out of there. But I would say that, you saw rumors circulating, and a lot of people thought Jeff Traylor was going to be our guy. A lot of people thought he was certainly, top 2 candidate. A lot of people still believe Sonny Dykes being in the running. You have the crew that say to bring back Art Briles to college football. And then there's a plethora of and Billy Napier as well.
Yep.
For Louisiana Lafayette. But then you have a lot of assistants. You have Joey Mcguire, associate head coach, and I think linebacker coach, from Baylor. He's at the top of the list right now as well. He's going to get an interview. That's been confirmed. That the interview has been scheduled. You have Oklahoma's defensive coordinator. His name escapes me at the moment. That has been confirmed that he is getting an interview. You have the Ole Miss offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a possibility, and I think you'll likely see him get an interview. And then those are just the names that I know of. Texas Tech has made it very clear that this is going to be a nationwide search, and they will take as much time as they need to do this right. There is no Kirby going rogue on this, even if he wanted to. Number one, he's smart enough to not do that again. But number 2, he has much more oversight, as we talked about earlier, about the establishing of the search committee. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of good candidates out there.
So Jeff
you
Traylor,
did mention one guy in Southern California,
Graham Harrell,
Tech alum. Graham Harrell. Don't forget about Graham Harrell.
So I was one of the ones that thought Jeff Traylor, this would be a step up for Jeff Traylor in his career. But I saw that he got that $28 million extension at UTSA, and he is building something great there. So he's out of the running, right?
I may be in the minority here, but I don't necessarily think so. And the reason why is because he's smart. I mean, if they come to you with a contract extension, you better believe he's going to take it. At the same time, the two big boosters that I mentioned, Campbell and Womble, have made it very perfectly clear that money will not be an issue. It doesn't matter. So they are, if he's our guy and they decide on it, you better believe they will be prepared to pay that buyout and make him an offer that will beat UTSA if that's our guy. So
yeah,
is he out of the running? Probably, but what I'm saying is I wouldn't say 100%.
And then following,
I just thought it was crazy that it was a 10-year extension that he signed. He didn't just sign an extension; he signed a 10-year extension. And like you said, Chris, about a step up, like, yeah, he's building something great at UTSA. There's no doubt about that. He's gotten them ranked. They've been, a hell of a football team, but it's still not a Power 5 school. Yeah. And if you're not a Power 5 school, you're never going to be contending for the national championship. I mean, that's just kind of been made very much aware, especially with Cincinnati's most recent ranking for the playoff, not even in the top 4 when, they're an undefeated team that's beaten Notre Dame. So if they're not making it this year, no one's ever going to do it. And you would have thought he would want to do a step up to a Power 5 school like Texas Tech.
And he still may. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but it happens. You look at like Matt Rule, the old head coach of Baylor. Yeah. He had a big time extension, and then like the next week announced he was leaving for the Panthers because that opportunity came. I mean, if you're coaching's a business, so if you get offered an extension, absolutely you take it, and then you just, if that better opportunity still presents itself, you certainly consider it.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to know. Can he leave after he signs the extension? The answer is yes.
Yeah, but it'll be pricey.
Okay, so moving on to the next one that you talked about with Sonny Dykes, and I think we have to mention that Gary Patterson he's done at TCU, and I was one of the ones that was for Sonny Dykes. I thought that would be awesome for Tech, and Evan and I have talked about trying to get the fan base back together, and I thought having Dykes, another Dykes in Lubbock would do that. I just can't think that Sonny Dykes is going to want to get out of Dallas, where he is building something in the Metroplex. And I don't even know if Tech would be a step up from SMU at this point. But I think if he was going to take that next job, I think he would want to stay in Dallas, and that would be TCU. That's my thought on it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it's always a step up to go from a Group 5 to a Power 5 school. Even if they're not, the best team in their conference, it is just a different level of support, the boosters, the money, the resources.
SMU though,
and
SMU's
the national
got
attention.
some big boosters.
I know.
At SMU.
They do, but it's still not the same as a Power 5 school. They're just the resources are just so much smaller, especially due to national broadcasting rights and all of that jazz. But you're right. I mean, it makes sense for him to stay in Dallas, and the TCU job opening up. I mean, it really makes this search even harder for Texas Tech, because now you have two Big 12 schools, one who has performed better than the other in recent years, but not too far off from each other. And you're both out in the market for a head coach. I mean, it's going to be tough to convince someone Texas Tech over TCU.
And yeah. Evan, I think you would know, is it easier to recruit at TCU than it is to Texas Tech?
I would argue yes.
Yeah,
I would argue yes, but with Sonny Dykes, the rumor mill is that he's very interested in TCU. They're interested in him. I think that he is more likely looking at TCU harder than he is at Tech. But I'm not so thrilled about Sonny Dykes anyways. I think that he has done an excellent job at SMU, building them into a very respectable program. But people have a short memory, and they forget that before SMU, he was the head coach at Cal in the Power 5 conferences like we were talking about, and he did not do so great, So I I don't know. It's a kind of a gamble hire again. And if any hire is a gamble hire, you could argue, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's the guy. I agree with you, Chris, that from a hype standpoint, having Spike Dykes' son in Lubbock would be pretty sweet. But at this point, I'm saying that it's Sonny Dykes wearing the red and black is probably pretty unlikely, just based on the surrounding facts.
And if we're going to talk about boosters, I know that the boosters from several articles that I've been reading want Mr. Art Briles in Lubbock. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I'll jump in easy. Whether you think that he was guilty of anything, whether you don't, there's no argument that he doesn't come with baggage. He comes with a lot of baggage. He comes with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of gray lines. So as I was telling you guys, your first main priority here is to hire a winner. Okay. Art Briles arguably checks that box, but your second
definitely checks that box.
He checks that box.
Well, I just mean, he did check that box. It's like, is there a transition to get back into college football coaching? But your second most important aspect of this hire, in my opinion, is you have to unite a fractured, uninspired, unenthusiastic fan base in Texas Tech. This is the worst divided fan base that I've seen at Tech football in a very long time. And you cannot afford to bring in Art Briles. You want to talk about division, that'll split us right down the middle, man.
Yeah, but the one thing that really brings different groups together when you have that division is winning.
That's true.
And
Winning
if he came in and they
everything.
started winning, I mean, he won the Big 12 back-to-back years at Baylor. I don't think he's the right choice. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to put my hat in the circle for Art Briles. I definitely think it's too much baggage. He's also in his late 60s. Like, I think that they need a little bit more life than that. Than a guy with that much baggage that hasn't coached college football in 6 years. But he is a winner. There's no, I think, denying that. He's an unbelievable football coach. But I do not think he's the right choice personally.
He is selling out seats in Texas 3A football in East Texas, but I would agree with you guys. I don't think he's the right choice. Evan thinks he has the right choice, and I know he's excited to talk about it.
Man, I don't know if it's the right choice, but the more I've thought about it and the more I've contemplated all of the options, I believe it's the best choice, and that is bringing back Mike Leach. You hear about it. You hear about it all the time. You heard about it while Cliff was still the coach. Bring back Leach. Then Cliff gets fired, and it's bring back Leach. And then Wells is still the coach, and it's bring back Leach. And you have the groups that always wanted him there. But here's why I think this hire makes sense. What I said earlier, what box has to be checked first? Someone that can win. Mike Leach, 10 seasons at Texas Tech, never had a losing record. We went bowling every single year. He was fired on arguably a gray, controversial issue, which, as we know, only got blown up into an issue because the player's dad was the ESPN broadcaster or analyst or whatever. So, I mean, so you talk about baggage, like there's a little bit there, but I think
very little baggage.
Right. I think
it's a carry on compared to Art Briles.
I think the bigger baggage is Mike Leach saying Tech still owes him from 2009.
Right.
There are reports in very recent articles that when asked about this job again, he said, well, they still owe me from 2009.
Yep.
So, he's been on that money thing for a very long time. But and in that camp that you were talking about, Evan, of people that were saying bring him back, when Cliff left, I said one of two people. I said Mike Leach or Graham Harrell, and Mike Leach would have been the favorite. And I'm with you. I would love to have Mike Leach back.
But as
if I can finish real quick,
the boosters will pay. So
right.
If Mike Leach wants his money, the boosters will give him his money.
So,
right, Evan?
Yes. So Mike, I'm going to get to that real quick. I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm sorry. I'm just going to kind of unload.
Just go off.
So
go off.
First box checked. Second box, uniting a fractured fan base who is not excited about Texas Tech football. Can you imagine? I want you to picture something in your mind. Picture the first home game back with Mike Leach as the head coach. Can you imagine the atmosphere there? Can you imagine the atmosphere during the offseason? I mean, really, think about the hype that would be around the Texas Tech football program if we brought Mike Leach back. You want to talk about uniting? I mean, there's going to be people that don't like it, sure. But you want to talk about bang for your buck and uniting a Texas Tech fan base? I can't think of a better candidate.
I don't think anyone would hate on that hire, Evan. I really don't. No one wanted to get rid of him. No one wanted to get rid of him when he got fired. No one did.
Feed me air raid for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
You know?
Feed me it. Air raid.
Inject it right into my veins. I'll take it.
Okay, so uniting the fan base. What's the next one?
Well, those are the two main. I could talk about this forever, but the next thing I want to talk about is why I think it's a realistic possibility.
Okay, because I need some convincing on that one.
Sure. Okay, so back when Leach was fired, recall talking about Cody Campbell. Cody Campbell, near billionaire, heavy influence on the Texas Tech athletics program. He was kind of the main one that was leading the charge for the Bring Back Leach campaign. He actually chartered a private jet to go meet with Leach at Washington State. Still had conversations with him, but Kirby simply would not consider the idea of bringing Leach back. Fast forward to today. Cody Campbell has even more of an influence over this hiring process. Cody Campbell and Dusty Womble are the two main. I think there's four guys on the search team other than Kirby. There's Cody, there's Dusty, there's the associate athletic director, and then one other who I can't remember. But Cody and Dusty undoubtedly have the most influence. I would argue that if Dusty and Cody just both agree on a candidate, that there would be little that that our AD could do to block it. I really believe that, at least to bring a recommendation to the border regions for voting. So Cody has made it very clear that money is not going to be an issue. You're going to be looking at paying him from 2009. You're going to be looking at buying him out from Mississippi State. What did you say, Ryan? He's making $5 million a year at Mississippi State, something like that. They've made it very clear that they are willing, prepared, and ready right now to make that happen. Money is not an issue. So
you also have to pay out Matt Wells like $8 million, right?
Yep, and that was the other thing is Cody and these guys. Ever since they wanted Wells gone last season, they were like, "We have the money, just please make it happen." So that's not going to be an issue either. So the money's not going to be an issue with Leach. The influence is there. I strongly believe that he's going to be considered at least. The question is there's also some outside influence. You got Kent Hance, you got an older group of boosters who were adamantly against the Leach hire, people who were involved in his firing, but the majority of those people are gone and they just have an outside influence. So I know for a fact that Leach is Campbell's number one guy, and that in itself makes it possible. But you couple that with the fact that Kirby absolutely has to drill this hire and he needs a home run hire. You look at the boxes you need to check with this coach. You won't convince me otherwise that Mike Leach doesn't check those boxes.
Okay. He'll put asses in seats. That's absolutely. For sure. Also very innovative and very fun. When he's in charge of a team, they're a fun team to watch. So.
And he has said off the record that he is absolutely interested in hearing about it.
Off the record, because I've been searching on the record. I haven't found anything.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, other than that, do you guys think that Sonny Cumbie's got a shot at being the head coach for Texas Tech next year?
Nope.
No, not
I'm
even.
being honest, no.
What if he wins 2 games coming up?
I think he would be considered. I think he has to win 2 games to get considered. And talk about a bad situation. Like, man, I feel bad for Sonny because he was thrust into a situation where Texas Tech has legitimately the number one most difficult strength of schedule for the last 4 games, including Oklahoma. So stepping in as your first time as a head coach at that moment is pretty lose-lose. So I feel bad for him.
I agree. It's kind of like set up for failure in a way.
Yeah.
And I think with what Evan's been saying about how you need this this home run candidate that unites the fractured fan base and also is a, proven winner. I don't think Sonny Cumbie is there yet as a proven winner. And beyond that, since he's been on this staff that's been kind of poisoning people's minds with Matt Wells, I don't think just promoting him to head coach really gets everyone all too jazzed up.
That is for sure. Maybe in the future, we might see Mike Leach, head coach, offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell.
I'd love that.
Oh my God. That would, whew. Talk
Dude,
about
can
air
you
raid.
imagine? All right. So I want to ask
That's
this before we move on.
That's a real possibility.
Can you give me your top, as it stands right now, who are your top 3 candidates? 3 to 1, 1 to 3, however you want to do it.
I'll go first. I'll go 3 to 1. I would say 3 for me is I don't have a super strong 3, but like I think maybe the best person they've talked about as a 3 would be Joey Mcguire from Baylor. It just seems to be a very strong coach. I don't know too much about him, but when I'm putting him up against someone like Art Briles, and I just really don't think that's the right choice, I'll lean towards someone like Joey Mcguire. That's also me assuming, Jeff Traylor's not available. If he's available, he's my 3. For me, it's Graham Harrell. We haven't talked about it that much, but I mean, we want to talk about uniting the fan base. I think that would get people in the seats. At North Texas, he was putting up so many points. At USC, they didn't do too great this year, and that's probably why he'll be looking for a new job. I think they're going to be sending out the whole staff. But to bring him back to the Big 12 and putting up numbers similar to what he did at North Texas, I would love to see. My number one's the same as you, Evan, Mike Leach. I mean, I said it when Cliff left. I wanted Mike Leach, and I've never changed in that mindset. I think it'd be unbelievable to have him back as the ball coach. Yeah, I mean, like Chris said, if you could get him as head coach and somehow get Graham Harrell as offensive coordinator, then it would be just like a wet dream.
Gross. Mine's pretty close to Ryan's. I would say my third favorite is the Stephen F. Austin head coach, who we didn't really talk about, Colby Carthrell. This program is in a place where it needs to be. This is not what Kirby said when he was talking about when Cliff came in. It wasn't a rebuild. It was I can't remember the exact terminology, but he was like, basically, we're ready to go. We are not ready to go. So I'm looking for someone that has built the program up to something competitive in the Big 12. I think Colby has basically done that with Stephen F. Austin. This would be a big step up. I don't think he would really unite the fan base or put a lot of hype around the program. And that's why, he's not one of my favorites, like top favorite. Jeff Traylor, I mean, I was kind of all about him, but I just don't see that happening. The more we've talked about it, if Mike Leach can come back to Lubbock, then I think that needs to happen. I think we need some closure with Mike Leach because it was just left with this uncertainty that he was fired over something that I don't believe he needed to be fired about, and they were winning. So it's like we need some closure in Lubbock. So if I had to pick, I mean, let's bring the Pirate back to Lubbock, really. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
I don't know. Art
Okay.
Briles is not going to happen.
For me, starting off at 3, we have Mike Leach, and then 2 is Mike Leach, and then 1 is Mike Leach.
Okay. So
all right, so we have consensus. Let's bring him back.
So Evan wants Art Briles to be the head coach of Texas Tech. Okay, so we've covered that pretty thoroughly. I don't know if we need that much time to talk about Oklahoma, but Evan and Ryan and I actually were commentating the entire game, the entirety of the game, including commercials. So we got a pretty good look at that.
I called in anonymously for about 5 minutes and listened. I just give you an applaud. I thought you both did very well.
Thank you. You did not get the job.
But yeah,
Thank you.
I'll tell you what. I don't want to talk about Oklahoma. What I want to know is what's our best chance now at going bowling? Because here's where you feel bad about the Wells scenario. You feel bad for your players. You feel bad for your players in the sense that they still have very much something to play for, especially your seniors.
Mm-hmm.
They want nothing more than to be able to go bowling. So how do we get that done? I think that, obviously our best shot is at home. We have Iowa State, we have Oklahoma State, and we have Baylor. Or we might have Oklahoma State first. Can't remember. But what do we need to do to win that game? And I will say that we do have a little bit of good luck headed our way, knock on wood. Mr. Tyler Shuck is supposed to be back after the bye week.
I don't want to see Tyler Shuck.
So I think what we need to do, the best bet, whatever you want to call it, is the game against Iowa State. It's the next game. It's coming off the bye week. You can put all of your attention for 2 weeks straight into that game. It's at home. They're probably the worst of the last 3 teams you have left. And like I said, off the bye week, it's a lot of times they talk about rest versus rust or teams, distracted during a bye week, whatever. I think they know this is their shot to go to a bowl game. And like you said, for those players, especially the ones who it's their last year here in Lubbock, like they're going to be all about getting a win. And this is going to be their best chance. Whether it's Tyler Shuck, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, if he's not back for that, start Donovan Smith.
Yes.
Donovan Smith.
I don't want to see Columby on the field at all.
Now, I do want to know what, because I'll be honest, I'm hoping Shuck plays.
I don't.
So.
Yeah. I would like to see Shuck play, but only if he's ready to practice now. I don't want it to be he gets cleared for practice on Wednesday and he's starting Saturday. I want whoever's at quarterback to be prepping for this game for this whole 10 days straight. And after seeing what we saw against Oklahoma, I think that Donovan Smith deserves to get a shot at this game to get the win.
I think Donovan Smith is the guy. I think Donovan Smith played incredibly well against Oklahoma. And what was he? He was 7 for 9 when he came on, and one was a drop pass. And then the other one was a tipped interception that was not his fault. He looks capable in the pocket, and he can scramble very well. He's got great legs. He's built like an ox, and he's a competitor. I mean, Ryan and I were commentating this game, and we were, this is the first time I've really gotten to see him play. And I was very impressed. Yeah. He's got a great arm. He's very mobile. I think he played extremely well, and I think he brings another dimension to the Texas Tech offense with his feet and his passing capabilities. Yeah. So, and
I think you're spot on.
Yeah, I mean,
with the feet especially, it's that read option that he brings to the game where they start running a read option with those 3 strong running backs, and with that added in, when you can also do the read option into a pass or the read option, you don't know which way the ball's going, and both people are extremely capable runners. It kind of just adds, like Chris said, a dimension to the offense that wasn't there before. And, it gives them I think a better chance.
Were you impressed with Shuck when he was playing, Evan?
I thought he made some bad decisions, Chris, but I saw glimpses of what I hope to be the future of the Texas Tech quarterback. Let's remember that, including this year, he came in with 3 years of eligibility. I fully believe that if Shuck is healthy, that next year he will be our starting quarterback. I love Donovan Smith, but I think that there's a very, very, very good chance that he transfers next year. Why? Because his dad is an assistant coach under Matt Wells, and he's likely gone.
Oh, God, I did not know that. Really?
Here's a question for you, though. Beyond the fact that who's going to be the starting quarterback next year, who do you think as starting quarterback gives them the best chance to win on the 13th?
I think Shuck. I'm sorry. Whoa. What am I saying? I think Donovan Smith has the best chance of us beating Iowa State. Iowa State has, shown that they are susceptible to the QB read option that Brian was just talking about. And from what I saw him throwing the ball against Oklahoma, he looked pretty good. And Iowa State just lost to West Virginia, and Dogie, or what's his name? Seth. He threw for, I think, over 200 against them. So I think Iowa State's our best chance. We need someone that hasn't been injured and that's ready to go, and it's going to get a lot of reps the next 2 weeks and has built up a chemistry with our receiving core. And I think Donovan Smith probably has that more than Tyler Shuck in the last, I don't know how many months he's been out, 2 months. So I'm leaning Donovan Smith. Anyone but Columbia.
Yeah.
Columbia sucks.
I'm Ryan, to your point, yeah. My answer depends on the status of Shuck. It depends on the status of him during this bye week. Depends on if he's the primary snap taker during this week. If he's healthy and he's getting all the practice, I'm rolling with Shuck. If he's not, and it's a week before or a few days before, I'm going Smith. That's not to discredit Smith. If Shuck gets to start, I still want to see us utilize Smith because I think he's a dangerous weapon. But if I get my choice of starting quarterback and he's healthy, I'm taking Shuck.
I'm going to be honest real quick. I don't think it matters that much who plays quarterback between Shuck and Donovan Smith in the Iowa State game. I think it's going to really just come down, does our Texas Tech defense have the capability to stop Bryce Hall and just running all over us?
I was going to mention that.
I mean, that's extremely true, but I think you're right because who it is at quarterback might not be the tiebreaker of who wins the game. But I just want to go back to who's healthy during this bye week and into next week, because they're going to game plan around the quarterback offensively, right? Like if you have Donovan Smith versus you have Tyler Shuck, you can have pretty different game plans going into the game. How much are you going to utilize the run? How much are you just going to be throwing the ball? Is it quick passes? Are you going over the top? It really matters to get that game plan in place, ready to go for the game. And that's why I think the most important thing is if they're going to play Shuck, he better be practicing this week, and they better be game planning for him.
A big positive of Shuck, too, and it's certainly not the reason to start him, but we are severely underutilizing Azukama. I mean, he's one of the best receivers, not only in the 12, but in the nation. And the chemistry between he and Shuck was apparent. I mean, he was his guy. They did everything on and off the field together. There was big time chemistry there, and he suffered when Columbia took the reins.
Yeah.
So, when you get 13 the ball, good things happen.
I mean, Smith got him the ball. I thought he had that catch that
Sure.
he had that touchdown.
Sure.
I thought he played well. I'm just gonna go back to the game coming up. I don't think it's gonna be a shootout versus Iowa State. That's my opinion. I think Iowa State's defense is pretty solid, and I just don't think Texas Tech's offense is that explosive to make this a 45, 40 or 50, 45 game. I just need Tech's defense to step it up, especially against the run game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that from looking at the game, you're right. You don't expect this to be a shootout, but from what I've found, especially this year with this Texas Tech team, is you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
It could be a 21-17 game. It could be a 45-40 game, and I don't think I'd be surprised either way. But it makes sense that it will be lower scoring. But it's the most confusing team I've ever watched.
That's a good way to put it. I think it comes down to defense, Chris. You're exactly right. But hopefully Cumbie doesn't look as much like a deer in the headlights this week. I mean, I know it was his first game as head coach, but thank God it wasn't a close game when you're on, third down with 15 seconds to go in the half. And
that was so bad.
On 15, you throw a pass right in the middle and sprint your field goal team on and don't even get to kick off. And so, hopefully we're a little bit more sharp there.
So Ryan and I were talking when we were doing our commentary about how do we think that Sonny Cumbie has done as a head coach in this game. And that was versus having Wells there. And that was the only thing that we both said was that we would have probably gotten 3 more points in the first half. Like that was the only real difference. Other than that, I thought he did a decent job. I didn't see any bonehead plays. I didn't see any ridiculous sky kicks. I thought he called a decent game. I just have, you can't give I'm forgetting the Oklahoma quarterback's name real quick, but
Caleb Williams.
you can't give Caleb Williams like that much time in the pocket. I mean, or outside or anything. We were just giving him so much time. And then you have like 5 NFL receivers on Oklahoma. Impossible. We're not, that it was impossible for us to win that game.
I will say though.
One last thing I want.
Go for it, Ryan.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say you're so right about that end of the first half. Like that was just mismanagement by the coach. I'm not putting that on Donovan Smith at all. It was the second down choice to do an end around that just 5-yard loss. Got nowhere even near the sideline. I mean, it was that was a terrible call. You got to throw the ball there so you can at least throw it away. Stop the clock.
Yeah. Well, gents, before we wrap this thing up, I have one last thing to say. We have 5 sleeps until Texas Tech basketball. And for that, I'm super stoked.
As am I. And we, talking about uniting a fan base, we got the guy to do it for the Texas Tech basketball season. I think we all can agree on that. And it's going to be a very exciting winter.
I can't wait. And we got our head coach speaking tonight.
Yep.
Excited to hear him talk.
In 2 minutes. So with that, how about we wrap this thing up?
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah. I'm Ryan.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Evan.
This has been the Raider Power Podcast. Guns up, baby.
Guns up.